Good morning, students. Today we will study chapter Footprints Without Feet. The author of the story is Herbert George Wells. This is an interesting story about a scientist named Griffin and his rare formula of invisibility. He developed a drug which made his body invisible, but he can only be felt physically. Then he misuses his power to steal money, clothes, and food. He found it difficult to stay in London with such power, so decides to move to a small village, Epping. In the village, people were skeptical about him and looked at him strangely. A series of incidences happened in the inn where he stayed. As his money exhausted, he again started stealing it from people and hid the owners of the inn when they suspected him. But lastly, he has to travel somewhere else and reveal his identity to the people, but nobody catches him as he becomes invisible again. In more details, as I said, this is quite an interesting story about a scientist named Griffin. He had been finding ways that could make a man invisible. He got success in such experiment and developed a formula with which he can become invisible but can be touched and felt physically. Griffin gulped the drug and became invisible. He accidentally stepped in mud and was first seen by two young men who followed his footprints till it became faint. He was walking on roads with a feeling of cold, so he enters a shopping center to feel warm. After the store shut down, he chooses to wear some comfortable garments and eat something. He initially unpacks a couple of garments and wears them. At that point, from the kitchen of a cafe, he eats cold meat and some espresso. Later, he decides to sleep on a heap of quilts in a store. The next morning, before he wakes up, some store associates started following him. He removed all the clothes instantly and became invisible once again. Now he is wandering without clothes in chilly winters of London. Then he decides to take clothes from a theatre company as he was sure he will get something there to cover his face too. He has stolen dull glasses, bogus nose, and a hat and some bandages for covering his face. Then he goes to a shopkeeper's place and stole all his money. Soon he realizes London is quite a busy place to live like this, so he thought of moving to the village, Epping. He booked 2 rooms in a hotel of the village and reached there. It is quite unusual for the villagers then an outsider with such a peculiar appearance has come to stay at a hotel throughout winter. After some time, his money exhausted and he started stealing from people. Furthermore, he hid the owner and his wife when they attempted to check his room in his absence. As they cannot see anyone, the owners thought there were spirits in the inn and that unusual guest is responsible for it. At that point, the town constable is requested to inquire in regard to what his identity is and what he did to her furnishings. This made him annoyed and decides to show his identity as a headless man. They cannot catch hold of Griffin as he takes off all his garments and become invisible again.